This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
Our underground network is standing by at the drop zone to distribute.
The transmission is being jammed. Looks like the Empire came out to welcome us.
Attention, Rebel Convoy. This system is under Imperial control. Stand down or be destroyed.
What a surprise. Star Wars, Sabers, and Scoundrels.
Starships.
Carabast.
Yeah.
Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels. The Scoundrels Special Edition.
Greetings, Scoundrels. We're back, and welcome to episode 49 3/4, a Scoundrels Special Edition. I'm Dennis, and I am joined tonight by my friends and co-hosts Jay Krebs and Darth Taxus. How you guys doing tonight?
Doing great. I can't believe this is ending. That's all I'm going to say for now. How are you guys?
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Yeah.
Our Rebels is coming to an end.
Yeah, but it's a celebration.
It is.
Well, Scoundrels, listen, if you are new to the show, you may be asking, what is a Scoundrel Special Edition? Well, I'm glad you asked. On our Scoundrel Special Editions, we forgo many of our usual features to focus on a specific piece of content, which lately has been an episode of Rebels. And this episode is no different as we focus on the final two episodes of Rebels, A Fool's Hope, and Family Reunion and Farewell. So with that out of the way, Darth Taxus, if you would, please sound the spoiler alert, because we are going into detail on both of these episodes. And Jay, if you would be so kind and read the episode summary for A Fool's Hope.
Absolutely. Well, here we go. Hera, Callus, and Rex retrieve allies including Wolf, Gregor, and Hondo to assist in Ezra's mission to liberate Lothal. Meanwhile, Ezra has a vision that the Emperor is sending Thrawn back to Lothal, and the time to act is now. Ryder believes they need an army and expresses his dissatisfaction. Despite Ezra having a plan, Ryder then contacts Governor Price and offers the revelation of the rebel hideout on Lothal in exchange for amnesty. The Empire then attacks the rebel hideout. While Ezra, Zeb, Sabine, Chopper, and their allies fight off the Empire, Hondo devises a plan for the Ghost to sneak back onto Lothal by powering down and attaching itself to an arriving Imperial cargo ship. The Empire gets the upper hand on Ezra and his friends in their battle, but then just when it looks like all is lost, Ryder reveals that it was a trap as Hera arrives in the Ghost and springs the trap. Retreating into the caves, Ezra and his team are reinforced by the Loth Wolves, who rout the Imperials. Ezra remarks that it isn't over until they rid Lothal of the Empire and show the galaxy that they can be defeated. Woof. Woof.
Mm-hmm.
Woof.
Yeah. Woof indeed. So let's go around real quick and give our quick initial reaction to the episode. So Jay, what did you think?
Wow. Well, of course, seeing Wolf, Gregor, and Rex together again, it just brings back all the feels of Clone Wars. And seeing Rex in his possibly Endor gear, that was the first thing my son brought up to me. Mm-hmm. And, the whole idea of, wait, is Ryder really going to betray them? Wait, what's going on here? And just, I was rooting on the Wolves. So this was a lot of fun and a great setup for our last one that we'll be getting into. But there was a lot going on here.
Yeah. How about you, Taxus?
Yeah, I really liked the action in this one. Ryder, doing what he was doing. I was thinking, I don't know. He's probably pulling a trick, The Wolf part where Ezra ignites his lightsaber, that was pretty cool. In general, it was just a fun little action-packed episode. Just to watch the fight and go down, and Ezra's Force leap that gets top marks for this episode for me. So,
well, I have to agree with you both. I think this is for me a model episode of Rebels with the action. As much as I've enjoyed a lot of the recent episodes, I feel sometimes the action, which is one of the hallmarks of Star Wars, has often been put to the side or been a side item as opposed to a focus. And I really enjoyed the narrative of this story being told through the action, as much as, as opposed to, say, last week when we were looking at Wolves in a Door, and it was the most of the story is being told by looking at a painting and discussing it. So some really interesting, that was a good episode as well, but it was nice to see the diversity between their episodes when you juxtapose last week with this week. But you guys both brought it up, so let's get into it here with Rex. Wow, that was an interesting costume he was wearing at the beginning of this episode as they headed back to, I don't even remember what the name of that planet was, where they left Gregor and Wolf. But they've upgraded. They went from being an ATTE to an AT-AT for their mobile headquarters, and I absolutely love that. I thought that was such an excellent tie-in to, I guess that was season 2. When they went retrieved Rex.
It was like episode 3 or something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, because those clothes were essentially in retirement at the time. But so Rex is in that gear now. He ditches it not too long into this episode, so. I hate using the word fan service, but is that what that was? Was that just something for the fans?
Well, I mean, I don't think so. I mean, of course, Rebels is all about tying threads together. And, why not take an opportunity when you see it and be able to put something in that, I guess maybe it's a little bit of fan service, but heck, why not? I mean, that's what we as fans love, are these little Easter eggs and being able to go, oh, wait. I know that, Yeah. So I don't know. I really appreciated it. I thought it was great. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, you brought up the action in this one, and you're absolutely right. The scale of the action throughout this scene, especially when the wolves started to come into the scene, I have to say, I literally jumped off the couch when Ezra ignited his lightsaber and those wolves started grabbing people. I was yes. Oh my gosh, this is so freaking great. Yes.
Well, we're jumping all over the place, and as far as the wolves go, this was one of my favorite appearances of the wolves. Because it's the, you've heard me complain in the past that sometimes the wolves have taken the fate of the rebels out of their hands, and in this case, I felt like they were more of an ally and an aid as opposed to the resolution itself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
That, in the past it was, if the wolf had been there, there was no way that Ezra and Sabine were getting away from the Empire. If the wolves had been there, they weren't getting their little hyper space transport from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere, and all would have been lost. Yeah, they needed them here, but it felt like the scale felt a bit more appropriate to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. It felt more natural, it's, it was an enjoyable part of that whole battle. And, I mean, come on, you saw it coming. I didn't necessarily see what comes later, but, the wolf thing, you knew that was going to happen, and when it did, you just said, okay, I feel really good about that. That's fine. And it's expected and enjoyed. Let me put it that way. Just like, and you know what? I'm going to say that the whole Rex thing, even if that is fan service, which I kind of think it is, I'm very good with it. I'm happy, because I thought that was always one of the coolest things about just in the Return of the Jedi, just all the little background stuff that's going on, and to make it feel more natural. Lucas was really good about that. And, here you've got this dude who's putting on the Biker Scout costume because, when they come back, they're going to be expecting to see him, And so, it makes sense that would be somebody who's comfortable wearing armor like that. Yeah.
And here's the thing, when they're fighting together as rebels and they've put together all of these battalions and whatnot, what we saw originally in films like Return of the Jedi, we really never thought about the fact that these people knew each other and they probably had a lot of history together.
Yeah.
So I believe that the new movies and Rebels and even going back to Clone Wars has really done a great job of showing how close knit and what an incredible network that they've built up over the years and the loyalty that's there. It's not just some dude off the street that just decided to sign up yesterday. This is Rex. This is someone that he's laid down his life for hundreds of times and vice versa. So I appreciated it. And I'm glad, like I said, I'm really glad that they did that.
Yeah, so I want to mention some of the other people that rallied to the cause here, so to speak, because they went and they got Wolf and Gregor, and Kitsu was hanging out there, and then Hondo and Melch were hanging around as well.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, and then of course back on Lothal, they already had Mart, and they had Ryder on Zadi. So they kind of brought in the co-stars from all 4 seasons for this finale, which was a nice addition. And I mean, come on, Hondo. That's one of the best characters to come out of.
I love Hondo.
Star Wars, and he had so many great moments in both episodes, but particularly in this one, he couldn't even say the word smuggler because he prefers to be a pirate. And then later in the episode when he's advising them, Hera and Rex and Callus, on how they're going to get back down to the surface of Lothal, he parks them outside the hyperspace lane, and they're waiting for this cargo ship. And then the idea is they're going to just latch onto the cargo ship and then sneak past the blockade. And so they ask him, well, that's your plan? And he's like, yes, when you're working with a pirate, these things happen. And then he says, and listen to Hondo, I've done this many times and I've only been struck.
Yeah,
he starts counting on his fingers. 1, 2, I've done this many times.
I've done this many times.
Exactly.
Yes. So I missed his presence. I gotta say, I'm glad they haven't forced him into a whole lot of episodes, because it really made him stand out in these 2 episodes that were the finale. It just made that appearance mean all that much more.
I want to know, I hope to see him in the future.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, especially. I loved it when, because you could tell he was giving his solemn pirate oath when he was dedicating himself to Ezra's.
No
Ezra,
kidding.
Right?
I was surprised by that.
Yeah.
What did you all think? Because, he flat out said there isn't anything I wouldn't do for that boy.
Oh, no. Talk about pulling at the heartstrings.
Yeah, they had developed a relationship over the course of the series, a number of times that they'd run into each other, but that was some serious devotion.
Well, Ezra's always proven his devotion to him as a friend, and even when everybody else is like, no, you know what I mean? But it was great. It's great to see Hondo take such a move like that to actually do something that you might say he's kind of forced into it for now, but hey, is he part of the rebellion?
Hera flat out told him he needed to become a rebel at the beginning of the episode. And one of the other things that this reminded me of was, I can't remember exactly which episode it was that Hondo appeared on, but he made an obvious reference to Obi-Wan Kenobi, and when he had said, that I was friends with the Jedi, well, I think we were friends.
Right.
And I can't help but wonder if a little bit of this is he misses Obi-Wan and feels like, perhaps he should have done more.
Yeah.
Because, he doesn't know that Obi-Wan's alive at this point.
Right.
And that, and at times, despite the fact that they found themselves on opposite ends of conflicts, Obi-Wan might have been a true as friend as he had prior to Ezra.
Yeah.
Well,
that's true.
Let me ask you guys, during the battle, when the Empire showed up at their headquarters, was I the only one that kept getting afraid for Zeb? Because he goes all Rambo on the Empire. He pulls up that cannon and starts charging them, and then he shoots up a ship.
Yeah.
He chucks the cannon at some stormtroopers. He kept throwing himself into harm's way. And as with the final 2 episodes, I was like, oh, Zeb, be careful. Careful, Zeb.
Right.
I couldn't stand to lose any more of them. But I don't know. Was I the alone thinking that?
No, I was chewing on my lip a little bit. Definitely. Because like you said, you're just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop and wondering how are they going to end this whole thing. And that's unfortunately one of the bad things about knowing that a show is ending, is that you're almost foretelling what the bad things could happen in your brain the entire time instead of just drinking in the episode. Although I guess the opposite could be true as well. If you think, oh, this, the series is going to go on and on and on, so we don't have to worry about losing him, So I guess it's sort of a double-edged kind of sword in a way. But yeah, I like I said, I was chewing on my lip a little bit.
I was very worried for him, but I was also enjoying his killing, rage, especially that picking up that heavy repeating blaster like that was awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, well, is there any other points from this episode you all want to discuss before we give our final grades and move on to the grand finale?
Well, one thing when talking about Ezra and talking about how all of these people are coming basically to help Lothal and to help Ezra was in Rebels Recon, how Dave Filoni had talked about that being one of Ezra's strengths is his charisma and his ability to basically get people to trust him and vice versa, that he's so genuine that people just naturally want to come to his aid and come to his cause. And yes, they were doing it for the rebellion, and yes, they were doing it to help Lothal, but in the end, it was really to help Ezra.
Yeah.
And to show, and also to pay a little more homage to Kanan, I do believe as well. But yeah, so the whole Ezra thing is definitely, and of course the whole series is tied around Ezra, so we know that.
I was hoping to hear at some point Kanan's voice in these 3 episodes to him, sort of like Obi-Wan to Luke, but it's all right. I have a quick question though, something I forgot about completely. But Dennis, in the Thrawn novel, was Ryder the governor that Price had a vendetta against, like his family?
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I mean,
because when he said he was governor, when they called, I was like, oh wait, how did I miss that this entire?
Yeah, now that you mention it, Taxus, I had a similar thought when I was watching this earlier, which was I don't remember it being the Anzadis that were, at odds with Arinda Price during this, but my memory was that whoever it was that took over, that was in that governor's office that was kind of had conflict with Price, was someone who was a lot meaner. I'm thinking Anzadi, Ryder Anzadi must have been a governor between the time period that she sold the family business and then the mines,
right?
Went to Coruscant and then came back. Because I don't think that was the governor she had a conflict with. Because the personalities aren't matching up there for me.
Yeah.
But well, then let's go ahead and go around the table real quick and give our final grade, and then we'll move on to the last episode. So, Jay?
I'm going to give this one about a 93. So a solid A for sure. It was great to see everyone coming back, seeing Ketsu, of course, seeing Hondo, Kallus, everyone, seeing the battle with Rook where he drops off the side. You think, is he gone? Is he coming back? What's going on? So the fight scene was amazing. Of course, like I said, I loved seeing the wolves, loved seeing everyone banding together. And so yeah, solid 93 for me on this one.
Taxus?
Really, you can't separate this from the next two, in my opinion, because it's, again, kind of the setup, although a very action-packed setup because they needed to capture the governor,
Uh-huh.
But I'm going to give it a 95 because I just had a good time watching it.
Now, see, it's interesting you should say what you did, because I was thinking to myself earlier today that unlike Wolves and Adore last week, prior to A World Between Worlds, I found it very difficult to consider that episode on its own because I didn't really feel like it had all the story elements that it needed to be an independent episode. Meanwhile, this episode did. It had an introduction, it had a conflict, it had a climax in the battle, and then a resolution where Ryder showed that he wasn't being a traitor and that this was all a trap to get their hands on Governor Price. And I really like that this episode was a bit more self-contained than the Wolves and Adore episode from last week.
Okay.
So, but I agree with you on the grade. I give this a solid 95. In fact, I might even be grading it closer to 100. It's just that while it was great, it was a great episode. It just wasn't quite over the top. Oh my God, amazing! But it was still a very solid episode. I liked it quite a bit.
A good song. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So, but I'm going to add this caveat.
What's up?
There might be a surprise in my grading in the next section we're going to discuss. So stay tuned.
Alrighty then. Okay. Well,
And we're back.
Jay, if you would, you got a rather lengthy summary here, but if you want to tackle that for us as we get into family reunion and farewell.
And I will savor every word because this is the last summary I get to read.
Oh.
So here we go. Ezra, with some assistance from the Lothwolves, coerces Governor Price into transmitting her victory codes as a cover for the rebels' infiltration of Capital City. Once there, they intend to launch the Dome, which is the seat of Imperial government on Lothal. Once they arrive, they feign a prisoner delivery and storm the Dome control room. They utilize Protocol 13 to summon all Imperial forces on Lothal back to the Dome. Mart tells Wolf and Vizago that Ezra has a special mission for them back at the Rebel base as they prepare Phase 2 of the plan. Before they can launch, they are attacked by Rukh. However, a Lothwolf comes to their rescue and Rukh escapes with one of the captured Imperial transports and contacts Thrawn of the Rebel mission. Kallus issues a Protocol 13 order recalling all Imperials back to the Dome, and once they have returned, they begin the launch process and prepare the self-destruct. Thrawn arrives and blocks the Dome. Then, Thrawn responds by bombarding the city until Ezra surrenders. Hera insists she won't let Ezra go alone, but as she formulates a new plan, Sabine provides a distraction and Ezra leaves. While Ezra is aboard the Chimera, Sabine, Hera, and the rest of the rebels move to retake the shield generators and launch the Dome. Thrawn takes Ezra to a storage area on the ship where a hologram of a younger, kinder-looking Emperor Palpatine is standing among a transplanted temple from Lothal. The Emperor tempts Ezra with the possibility he can save his parents if he opens a portal with the Force. Although tempted, Ezra tells his parents he loves them, they will always be a part of him, but then lets them go and destroys the temple. At the Rebel base of operations, Mart, Gregor, and Wolf wake up and set off in the Ghost to launch a beacon into Lothal's orbit, broadcasting at frequency 0. On board the Chimera, Ezra resists temptation and defies the Emperor. On the Dome, the rest of the rebels fight off the stormtroopers around the shield generator, and Zeb fights hand-to-hand with Rukh, eventually defeating him when the generator powers up. However, Gregor eventually succumbs to a blaster shot during the fighting. His sacrifice is not in vain, as the shield is made operational just as Thrawn begins bombardment on the city. Ezra confronts Thrawn on the bridge of the Chimera as a herd of Purgils arrive at Lothal and attack the Imperial fleet. The Purgils decimate the Imperial fleet. They then attack the bridge of the Chimera and hold Thrawn in place as Ezra secures the bridge. They then drag the Chimera into hyperspace with them and leave. Despite Hera's and Sabine's pleas that he get out of there, Ezra stays aboard the ship. With the Imperial ships gone, the rebels launch the Dome into the atmosphere where it blows up. Lothal has been freed! Hera prepares the Ghost to go after Ezra, but then Chopper plays a message Ezra recorded. Ezra expresses his regret about having to leave, but it was the path he had to take. He can't wait to come home. Epilogue. Sabine narrates the epilogue. After the Galactic Civil War is over, Capital City is beautiful and rebuilt. The Empire never came back to Lothal. Zeb took Kallus to Lyrisan. Hera fought at the Battle of Endor, and so did Rex. Hera had a son with Kanan, and his name is Jason. Ahsoka returned to Lothal, and together with Sabine, they set off to find Ezra.
Well, yeah, that was well read considering how sloppily that was written. Sorry about that.
No, good job. Good job.
Covered for a few things there. I appreciate that. So, okay. Well, this was an incredible episode. I'm going to start the initial reaction there, and
you do that.
We're going to be talking about this one for a while. And I got, in the tradition of Rebels season finales, they've all been fantastic, and this is just another one and that line of great finale. So, real quick, I mean, let's not get into the plot points because we're going to do that over the conversation. You have any initial thoughts you want to get out there?
Just how much, oh goodness. I mean, it just left me going, what did I just see? And especially that epilogue, I had to go back and watch it 3 times in a row just to be able to drink in everything that I was seeing. And just, was that really their kid? Doing the math in my head kind of thing. And then the fact that they used the name Jason and finding out later that it's spelled Jacen. And I mean, just bringing back the Purgils, and because a lot of people were like, Purgils, that was so silly. But just the idea that you're watching this cartoon essentially, and sometimes over the course of Rebels and even Clone Wars, sometimes I would think that they're separate from the entire universe, of Star Wars. But this, I had to say to myself, no, this is now, it's all tied together. This really is history. This is Star Wars history. And of course I always knew it, but this just solidified it for me in the most amazing way possible.
Yeah, it makes like the regular, like the original New Hope. You watch that and you're like, this is interesting, because before this, things were really weird. Space whales crashing into ships and all sorts of stuff, and in a way it almost makes a New Hope kind of feel a little tame, you know what I mean, from as comparison. But Jason, that was awesome. I loved seeing that. It made me really happy. I liked how he had hair and not some weird stunted Leku like we saw in the Clone Wars with a offspring of a human and
but he did have big ears. Did you see how big his ears were?
Yeah, they were big.
Tinted green too at the ends.
But the so I thought that was really great, and I just the ending, I had to go back and rewatch the ending a couple of times too, because it was just so wonderful. I mean, it was just so good. It was so well done, and just made you. I mean, because, I'm just saying, you really feel for this group. I mean, everybody's come to love them, and it's like you feel like, oh man, you're pulling the carpet out from under us, And
definitely.
But now it's like, wait a minute, the story's not over. So yeah.
Well, it occurred to me today when I was rewatching this to get ready for this discussion that. Yeah, you get about 45 minutes of story here spread out over the course of an hour when you take in all the commercial breaks. But it really played like the third act of one of the movies. And the more I sat and I absorbed it, the more it seemed like the climactic sequences in Return of the Jedi to me.
Oh, wow.
And the reason being is the Purgils. It is a not an indigenous species, but it is the... How do I want to put this? Where the Ewoks were a more primitive species that managed to take down the Empire. These Purgils are essentially the space whales that come in and help take down the Empire. There was this, a defeat at the hands of an Emperor or the stand-in for the Emperor with Thrawn. And anyways, I got that vibe. And then they really cemented it when they did this version of the credits with the traditional end credits music that John Williams has always done for Star Wars.
Yeah.
And especially, they went through, one screen per actor, Vanessa Marshall's, Hera, and, and the like. And then they got down to Chopper and revealed that was Dave Filoni doing the voice, which I'm not sure that really surprised too many people. But
wait a minute, Dave Filoni was the voice?
You didn't know this?
Oh, man, I completely missed that.
Come on. Seriously? You're being silly, right?
No, but okay.
Yeah, they officially said in the credits for the first time, Dave Filoni as Chopper.
I was crying a lot, so it was really all the words were blurry to me. So yeah.
You have to watch Rebels Recon because they do a cute little thing with that whole thing.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of skipped to the end, but since you both kind of brought it up, I want to address it real quick. But the epilogue that Sabine delivered, it's after the end of Return of the Jedi, and it is, I was thrilled by this. This was the best way to end a series, as far as I was concerned. We got to see that our heroes didn't perish during the Galactic Civil War, that they lived on. That Kallus got to experience a little bit of redemption by going back to Lyrasan with Zeb and seeing that he didn't wipe out all the Lasats.
Yeah.
Basically all those things that you said in the summary, Jay. And then we got very much the Lord of the Rings moment when Ahsoka shows up looking like Gandalf with the staff.
Yeah, I saw some people referencing that.
Yeah, to go look after Ezra. But that was
a Sokolf. Yeah.
It's just I don't know about y'all, but there was a little bit. There's been some apprehension with the finale of this series coming up about who was going to survive, who was going to live, and that's only natural.
Sure.
Especially since just a few episodes ago they proved that they're willing to kill off a major character, and to get through it this way, and there was that moment where you thought Ezra sacrificed himself, that he died.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The whales dragged the ship into hyperspace. And then we find out that he's out there, that he's alive. And then it was confirmed by Dave Filoni and the Rebels Recon that both Thrawn and Ezra survived, but he's not going to tell us where they are yet, which I'm fine. I know they're alive. So
maybe he doesn't even know exactly where they are yet.
Oh, he knows. He knows.
I wouldn't be surprised if he knows, because he's such a milestone, or I should say he's miles ahead, light years ahead of his time in terms of storytelling, that he can see the bigger picture before it even happens.
Yeah, wow. Think about that. I mean, okay, so we talked about in the last episode about how much foresight you would need to plan.
That's the
whole,
word I was looking for. Thank you, foresight.
Yeah. And he also has 1, 2, and 3 sight as well. But I mean, just to keep Ahsoka, just to plan for her to come back, right? And you got to imagine that. I mean, it's just mind blowing to think, okay, I'm not going to do it in this one, but in the next series, I'm going to totally have Ahsoka looking for Ezra. It's like, whoa, a next series. And that he was planning this thing out from, had to be from a couple years ago,
oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like, well done. To me, Filoni needs to be at the head of board tables. You know what I mean? When they're planning out the moves for Star Wars, he gets it. He knows what it is, and
he lives it. And that's the thing. I mean, just listening to him talk about all of these stories and talking about the personality of the characters and talking about how all of these pieces of history intertwine. The guy lives, breathes, eats, and does everything Star Wars. I mean, literally. Yeah. And he's all in, and it's not just a story to him. It's his passion. It's what he does.
Right.
And I just love that about the whole thing. And of course, I'm going off on a tangent here, but of course, the first things that come into your mind when you're thinking about this is, ooh, okay, so could this be the big 3 in the next trilogy? You always have the big 3. So could it be Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra? Or is that going to be the non-Skywalker trilogy of movies that we're going to get? So that's where my brain went first. And of course, we haven't even talked about the episode yet. We'll have to get back to that. But
and Thrawn.
Yeah, and then thinking about how, and then Thrawn's going to be in there maybe as the villain.
You know what? I don't know. I mean, I would think that Thrawn, if he's true to character, let's say all of a sudden they drop out of hyperspace somewhere, and the Purgles are like, okay, buddy, let you go. Bye. And Thrawn's standing there.
Well, let me interrupt for a second here, because we're starting to get into speculation about what comes next.
I was just going to say that we could speculate for a long
I'm just saying that what I know about Thrawn, he's not going to be like, you're still my mortal enemy. He's going to be like, well, let's figure out how to survive this. You know what I mean? So that's what makes me look forward to it, knowing that they're both alive.
Right. Okay. But since we brought up Thrawn, I think there's at least a couple of major areas that need to be discussed when it comes to this episode. And since we're on the topic of Thrawn, let's start there. Okay. I think he's been an extremely interesting character over the past 2 seasons of Rebels. We all had some preconceived notions, which is natural, about what he would be like, having read Heir to the Empire and a couple of the other Legends books that made references to him.
Right.
What did you think about his actions in this final episode where, in an attempt to force Ezra's hand, he starts bombarding the city to get Ezra to surrender? I have a thought on that, but I want to hear what you guys have to say first. Jay?
Well, I think a lot of it is definitely true to form for Thrawn. But there was also a part of me that almost felt that some of it was in some ways anticlimactic. to his character. And, maybe that's just me hoping for a little bit more of, I guess, a showdown, but I suppose that's not really Thrawn's way. He's more manipulative, and he's more, he uses his smarts and his cunning and that type of thing. But I absolutely did love how Ezra basically came back and said, you don't, what was it that he said? It was, you think you can take whatever you want, things you didn't make, you didn't earn. And he's basically calling him out for all of having all of these things. And I think that kind of bothers Thrawn a little bit, because he's not original, so to speak. He takes, he doesn't earn things. He just takes them. He makes opportunities out of things, which I think is Thrawn believes that of himself. He pats himself on the back for making lemonade out of lemons, but in the end, what has he really accomplished?
What did you think, Texas?
I think that got under his skin. His blue skin.
I'll tell you why I would think that got under his skin, because I think that Thrawn also is playing the long game based on what we read in the novel, and he's fulfilling his promise to the Emperor and the Empire, but I think that he still has loyalties to the Chiss Ascendancy, and that he's doing something for the greater good of his people. And I think that would, I don't know, the whole bombardment thing, it kind of, I don't know. Did it feel out of character?
That's what I'm asking. That's precisely what I'm asking, because Taxus, you hit on something that I was wondering about. Jay, did you get a chance to finish the Thrawn novel?
I did, finally. Okay.
Well, if you all recall, and spoilers for a book that came out about a year ago, folks, but anyway, if you remember towards the conclusion of that novel, Arenda Price causes a bomb to go off in a city that is protected by a shield, and the force of the explosions basically reflected back into the city, killing thousands and thousands of people needlessly as she's trying to cover up essentially what a murder that she's committed.
Right.
And that flat out disgusted Thrawn.
Yes,
he was not happy about that.
Yes.
And then we get to this series where he has spent a lot of time, I think, striking strategically, surgically almost over the course of the past 2 seasons. But he gets back to the capital city of Lothal, and it's the one guy he wants is in the dome. And to get him to come out, he opens fire on all these otherwise innocent people in the city. They aren't rebels. They aren't currently fighting the Empire. But for someone who had a major issue with Price killing thousands of people needlessly, purposelessly. Yes, tough word.
Yes,
he essentially did the same thing. Now you might argue that he had a purpose to that, which was to defeat the rebellion in this case. But I don't know. It was to me, it just kind of that struck me as I wasn't sure that was complete within his character.
Well, I feel like when you say that, though, what it makes me think about is that I think that the reason that Arenda Price's actions disgusted him was because she did it because it was a mistake. She was doing it to cover up something, and it was just disgusting because why did you do that in the first place? This is embarrassing, and you use that as a means to an end. Whereas with this, his whole thing was to defeat an enemy, you must know them. And he knows how much Ezra cares for the people of Lothal. So that's who he's going to target. You know what I mean?
I don't dispute that at all. You're exactly on point that yes, you have to know your enemy. But again, it's still, to me, maybe it's just wish fulfillment that I wanted to see him be a bit more noble in that regard, he wouldn't target the innocent people in the city. And I'm still not, I still feel like while it's consistent with one part of his character, the part you just described, it's inconsistent with another part of his character from what we've seen in the past. But that struck me. And go ahead, Texas.
I just feel like, I don't know, in my head canon around it, it's sort of like the end move, the end game move. And when Ezra was like, no, I can't do that, he's like, he's forcing my hand. You know what I mean? Kind of thing. It's like it sort of reminded
he seemed
me
to be more resigned to it. I mean, well, that's not even the word I want to use. He seemed to be. It's like, okay, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah,
I didn't feel like there was as much reluctance as I was expecting out of him.
Well, he might have done the calculation, like how many potential casualties would I inflict before he gives in. It's probably not going to be that many, you know. But it's worth it to stop. See,
you have to go to speculation to get to that point.
And I am. But
unfortunately, I just don't feel like you can. I mean, that's all you can do is speculate. You really can't look at any evidence from this episode to get there. And all this aside, this might be the only real issue I have with this episode.
Yeah.
Is this decision by Thrawn? But I also think there's something to what you said earlier, Taxus, where they went screaming out into space, courtesy of the Purgles and hyperspace, and part of me wonders if they didn't end up in those unknown regions where Thrawn came from. But again, I have no way of knowing.
Yeah, that would actually make that trilogy, come to life in some ways. But
right.
Not to interrupt you there. Sorry.
No, that's quite all right.
One thing too. I guess we could beat a dead Parker pig here all night. But one of the things that Thrawn said was that the Jedi choose what is morally correct instead of what is strategically sound. So perhaps he felt like attacking Lothal was strategically sound. He didn't care about being morally correct.
Right.
So he was kind of proving his point.
Because he was trying to get to Ezra, and I'm sure he knew Ezra wouldn't let him lay the entire city to waste.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we could debate either way. Absolutely.
Sure.
And I definitely see everybody's points for sure.
His conduct was consistent within this episode. I don't know that it was consistent with what we've seen from him over the course of 2 seasons of the novel. That I guess is I guess that's the larger issue I'm having.
Or Vaughn's Thrawn.
Sure.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Well, let's then turn to Ezra and Palpatine and the temple, or at least the portion of the temple that Palpatine had removed from Lothal and up to the Chimera. So, I'm going to go ahead and get your reactions first before I make my point. Jay, what did you think of this entire sequence?
Well, of course, the Emperor's going to use whatever means he can to get Ezra to, basically take him out of the picture. And he knew how much he wanted to go back and basically go back to his life. He missed his parents. He didn't know if this was the right path for him. And Dave Filoni said that too, when you're presented with a tough choice and someone gives you a way out, it's very, very tempting. And of course, the way that he did it was by presenting himself as this grandfatherly, figure, as opposed to being the mean old emperor, which we've seen Palpatine do on a number of occasions. And that's how he originally gained Anakin's trust, was by being a mentor and by being, this fatherly or grandfatherly type of person. And even in the scene with Mace Windu, he was begging him to help him. So there's that pitiful side to him that you almost want to satisfy with the actions that you choose. And I know it was so hard. I mean, Ezra's had so many difficult decisions just in the span of a very short amount of time. And no one person should have to deal with all of that stuff at once. But he made that decision. He saw that bigger picture, and he knew what he had to do, not only for himself, but almost for his parents too, as a legacy thing, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah, I was desperately trying to find this again, but I read an article a couple days back that called it that said Palpatine and his mirror of Erskine something. I don't know if they were using like this ancient. That's what I was trying to find. I don't know if they were using like some sort of common literary term for like something that was in Greek mythology, or if it literally was an artifact that they recognized in the Star Wars universe. You know what I mean?
Well, maybe you can explain the concept, because I'm not following you here.
Well, I mean, basically what Ezra was looking at, this article referenced as the mirror of something or other. You know what I mean? And I don't know.
I'm sorry, I don't.
Well, I mean, the doorway that he was looking at,
okay.
That's what they were referencing. They called that the mirror of And then there's a word I can't remember. I was desperately trying to find the article
basically, it's
again.
reflecting a desire.
Yeah, something like that. Maybe it was the Harry Potter reference. Maybe that's what they were referencing. So, so I was trying to find the word again so I could, talk about it and research it. But yeah, I thought it was interesting that it was a hologram of Palpatine and, especially juxtaposed against what we saw in The Last Jedi, that wasn't hologram of Luke. That was really Luke, or his image.
Yeah, there's no question this time around, though.
With the Force, and, Palpatine had to use hologram technology to do that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, this was done well. This was done well because it was, I don't know. Was there a trap on the other side? Surely if he had taken the Emperor up on his offer, it's like dealing with the devil. You know what I mean? It can't end up good for you.
Well, I interpreted that to be a leftover from the A World Between Worlds episodes where the Emperor was begging Ezra essentially to open the door for him. Yeah. And there was something about this portal that he wanted Ezra to... My interpretation of that is he wanted Ezra to open the portal so that he would have access
so he could learn,
to the World Between Worlds, because the Emperor doesn't know how to do that.
Yes.
Okay, two things. One, what was written, and then the performance for Ian McDermott as the Emperor in these scenes was amazing.
Yeah.
You want to talk about a very convincing temptation scene. He came up behind Ezra and was whispering at him about, you could have what it is that you want. Not many people get this opportunity. Don't let this pass you by. All you have to do is unlock that door and you can save them and you can have the life that you always craved. It was such an incredibly well done and convincing temptation scene.
Yeah. Especially since for the entire series, that's what Ezra's been lamenting his loss over. Do you remember how critical that was in the very first season, and why this was so good that he found a home and a new family, and why, even if, I don't know, I just seem to remember people not quite grasping this concept in season 1, but I immediately saw, there's mom, dad, there's like the older brother or uncle or whatever, and then there's the sister. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Yeah. And so this was the penultimate temptation for him. This was his test. He became a Jedi Knight after this.
This was like his trial, you mean?
This was his trial.
Like his Jedi trial.
Yes.
Well, a big part of that, too, I believe, is that he had already made his peace with his past and his parents. When he was looking at that, the holographic picture of his family, and he was basically saying goodbye to them. When Hera was standing down underneath and she overheard him speaking, and he said, I have a new family now. And it kind of made her smile. So he had kind of already made his peace with that. So he had already made his choice. And yes, Palpatine did make him second guess that choice. But I do believe that had he not made his peace before that, maybe he would have been a little bit more tempted. But he was on a path and he wasn't going to be swayed as easily.
Yeah. Well, you both nailed exactly the point I was about to make. To tie into what you were saying, Jay, yes, there was the scene at the beginning of the episode where he's looking at that picture and he's talking to his parents, and Hera overhears him, and then he's making the comments about how he's found this new family. It comes up again during this temptation where he says goodbye, I've got this family, and then it comes up a third time at the end of the episode where he essentially tells him, I hated that I had to do this and I'm going to miss you all. And he tells Zeb, you can have the top bump back. Hera, yes. Hera left you a your favorite fruit. I left you a Mailerone. And then, Sabine, don't forget, I'm counting on you. And, it was a very heartfelt family message that he was leaving behind there. And I was so proud of Ezra because I remember back in season 2 and season 3 of the series, getting frustrated with him because he kept making the same mistakes. He kept reaching for that dark side temptation. He had flirted with the Sith holocron for a little while there, and then he fell back into that. Remember in season 1, the Fear Knocks, when he reached out to them and called them up out of anger, and this time he reached out to the Purgils once they showed up, out of pure intentions, out of better intentions in this case. And in this scene, He's always been looking out for his friends and his family, and he learned Kanan's lesson that he had to let them go, that he had to let the past be the past, and that he had to look out. He had to do what was right for the now, for the family that he had now. And then I guess the only other point I would make that is, we've seen Palpatine seduce potential apprentices. He played the long game with Anakin, and it was very convincing and very well done in that case, because it took 10 years in order for that to work. And, he was within a heartbeat of getting Ezra to push that button and open that portal. So again, extremely, extremely well done. Yeah. So let's talk about the Purgles a little bit. What did you all think about their appearance?
I didn't really, not that I didn't understand them the first time around, but it was kind of hard to wrap my head around. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I guess I shouldn't really be surprised by anything in Star Wars, I mean, there's a limitless possibility of things that could happen, but as far as what I guess goes on in my head, I never anticipated seeing them again. Let's just put it that way. So when they showed up, it was like, what? Huh? I almost had to pinch myself in a way, because am I really seeing this again? But of course, as I say, it makes sense because Ezra is so tied in with all of these natural beings, and he has such an affinity for being able to communicate with them, no matter whether it's the Purgil or the Loth wolves or the Loth cats or the puffer pigs or or whatever it is. Right. He's so in tune, and he is part of the living force. And I think that's part of the point of this entire series, is that you cannot separate yourself from the force. Right. And it really made that point hit home for me.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, I gotta say that Joe Tavano called it on Brews and Blasters, so well done.
Yeah, he did.
I imagined something slightly different, where the Purgles would jump out of hyperspace and affixed atop the King Purgil, who is also known as Purgilister. I'm just throwing that out there, Pablo. There was a Ahsoka with her 2 sabers, and just charging headlong in. But that didn't happen. It was probably best that it didn't, because I liked what they did with her later. Just saying. So yeah, that was great. And and again, it's like all the animal stuff. I kept saying, well, okay, he's basically the Jedi Dr. Doolittle here, throughout the series. I was like, yeah, he's talking that animal, he's doing that animal, he's doing that. But now it just all came home. The whole purpose for his special affinity, as Kanan explained way back when, for being able to communicate with animal beings. And I guess I kind of Tim McMahon on Less Than 12 Parsecs podcast, part of the Commonwealth Network, Star Wars Commonwealth. Yeah. He pointed out that he was like, yeah, I just hope that somehow Ezra told these space whales, hey, when you jump out of hyperspace, there's people going to try to kill you, so that they just kind of understood somehow, But I think though that it wasn't done out of anger, and I think we can see that some creatures in Star Wars actually have a good memory, and the Purgles were basically being persecuted by the Mining Guild, if I remember correctly, under the auspices of the Empire. So, and they were fiercely loyal to Ezra because he's the one that freed them. So yeah, I thought that was well done. I liked it.
Well, I got to say, if you had told me, if this had been spoiled for me beforehand that the Purgles were going to show up and save the day, I would have said, you got to be kidding me.
Right, exactly.
But it was very, very well executed. I'm willing to put aside a little bit of a nitpick. Basically what you said is that, how in the world do these Purgles know what they were going to show up and face in this instance? Because it wasn't that Ezra was talking to them. It's that Mark and Wolf and Vizago took the ship up into high orbit and released that beacon that just had a frequency that attracted to them. So it's not like they were being told about this in advance. But the other thing about this is if you remember the episode that the Purgles showed up in, remember what Hera thought of them? She thought that they were a galactic nuisance, that they wandered into hyperspace lanes and they got people killed.
Right,
and,
exactly.
And now, here they are, saving the day. And if you remember,
saving her Leku. Yeah.
Right. Well, do you remember what Sabine said? And Hera's response, Sabine says, like, when did this become the plan? And Hera responded, like, you're asking the wrong person. I love that moment. I thought it was such a well-delivered line by Vanessa Marshall. But this notion, it was so improbable. And, going back, it was, that was what, a season 2 episode? It had a very much of a standalone feeling. They went and got some fuel from a depot and they kind of did a solid for the Purgles in the process. It got accusations of being filler at the time.
Right.
I've seen people get on their high horses about saying we should, next time don't call an episode a filler until you've taken the whole thing in.
Come on.
I'm not certain it's fair that, while the filler label may not have been the most fair thing to do, I also think it's, a little much to be asking someone, be willing to wait 3 seasons to get your answer on this.
Right.
Anyway, that aside, I don't know. I really enjoyed that. I was really amazed by some of the super gigantic Purgles that showed up because we didn't see anything like that the first time we saw them. They were all much smaller. That pod Purgles was, I guess they were babies. I don't know. They were a lot smaller than what we saw.
Mega Purgle. That's what it was.
Yeah, I don't know the anatomy or biology, so I couldn't tell you. But you're right. They were a lot bigger. So, but yeah, it's it's the same thing that I've been saying. And maybe I'm just easily amused. I don't know. But here lately, even with The Last Jedi, everything that has been coming out of Star Wars lately, I keep saying it's everything and nothing that I hoped and thought it would be. And I'm so utterly pleased by that. I like not being able to know exactly what's going to happen because that's really no fun, quite honestly. Yeah. I love being surprised and I love what they're doing with all of these ideas and all of these concepts, and the way that they're executing them is it's mind-blowing. I am so incredibly impressed. And like I said, maybe I'm just easily amused. I don't know, but I don't care because I'm having a great time with it.
I mean, I've unlearned what I learned and I'm enjoying the heck out of it. I'm just opening myself up to seeing what unfolds, which, by the way, there's been a few articles out there saying, did Star Wars Rebels just change canon, with the whole, hey, this was their first victory. And I think we talked about that at some point, maybe the last episode, was that?
Yeah, well, it's pretty easy to explain that one away.
Right. And I think Dave Filoni did address it. So, I mean, there's technicalities about it, but, it's like, I don't know, when we talked about it, it wasn't so vitriolic, I guess, as I was making it sound, but from what I've read online, on the interwebs. And, I just felt like, there's people that are just still constantly trying to take pot shots at it.
Well, yeah. I mean, the naysayers are going to neigh, and they're going to neigh the loudest. Do you know what I mean? And there's so much toxicity though out there, and I think that it's one of those things that people just like to be toxic for the sake of being toxic. But I could go off on a tangent on that, and I won't.
Yeah, we're going to stay positive here.
Exactly. I'm just saying, as far as this, like unseating some sort of concept of what Rogue One was. Dennis, why don't you explain it?
Well, I mean, the simplest explanation for this is this was not actually a rebel offensive. They make that plain throughout this episode.
This is not the
rebellion's not committing any more forces, and they've been saying that for episodes now. That they don't see a reason. Mon Mothma and the Rebel High Command doesn't see a reason to commit any more forces to this, and so they take it upon themselves to call in allies. Gregor and Wolf and Kitsu and Hondo and Melch.
Hondo, for Pete's
sake. And Vizago. None of these people are rebels, but they rally to the cause. It's a movement for Lothal, and not everyone, but a lot of the people that are involved are in it for Lothal, not for this overarching rebellion victory that's going on out there. So no, it does not change any canon out there. But
Do you know what I just realized this reminds me of?
What's that?
This whole episode? It reminds me of Avatar: The Last Airbender, Day of Black Sun. When
I have not seen it, so I don't understand the reference.
Well, it's a Dave Filoni. You know,
okay.
I guess he was affiliated producer. I can't remember exactly, but there were things in it. Remember the Bendu scene that I showed? The picture that I found of Kanan talking to the Bendu looked very similar to Aang speaking with the giant earth turtle. It's I don't know. It was a couple of years back, but it reminds me of that. It had the same feeling that episode did, where people from this group had met along their travels, had all banded together to help them try to accomplish what was going to be the impossible, which was and take advantage of the day that the Fire Nation, Earthbender or Airbender, Avatar friends out there will know what I'm talking about. That the Fire Nation was at its weakest. So that made, go back. If anybody knows what I'm talking about, go back and watch that episode and see if, you get the same feeling I did.
Okay. Well, I'll have to take your word on that one.
You should watch it. It's a good series. It's a really good series.
Well, I would love to, but I've got a lot of other hobbies that are commanding my attention at the moment.
What? Star Trek's on hiatus right now. Come on. Just playing.
Yeah, right. Anyway, well, I'm going to throw it around the table. We kind of hit the high points that I wanted to talk about here. And, there's obviously we want to touch on some of the things from the epilogue again here. We mentioned at the top. But, Jay, you brought up the whole Jason name. So you want to explain what that reference is for anyone who might not be aware?
Sure. Well, of course, from Legends, aka Expanded Universe, Jason and Jaina were the twins of Han and Leia. So there was Jaina Solo and Jason Solo, and Jason was spelled Jacen. And eventually, Jason had become a Jedi and also fallen to the dark side and became Darth Taxus, and then all kinds of things happened. But just seeing again the whole tie-in to Legends. And pulling, just like they pulled Ben's name. Ben was originally in Legends Luke and Mara's son's name.
Right.
So they pulled that one out, and now they've pulled Jason out, and so it just made me so incredibly happy.
Mm-hmm. Well,
again, I'm easily amused, but
Jason. Well, no, you're not easily amused because I was like, oh wow, they did that, and then it's like, oh whoa, they did that.
They went there.
Does that name portend anything for his future? And that's all kinds of speculation that we can't even begin to address.
Green lightsaber. I mean, is he going to get Ezra's lightsaber eventually?
I don't know, but Jason came to a bag. So
yeah, so and he had a green lightsaber too. Jason Skywalker.
Yeah. So I don't know. I was like, well, I hope he's the Jason that was the kid, the teenager that did not end up where his namesake ended up. But so there was that, and I don't know. It's like I said earlier. Was there anything that you guys would have changed about the ending of this, Taxus?
Short of Ahsoka riding to the rescue on top of the Purgils, no. Man,
aren't you glad that that's actually not what happened? That she didn't. I am. Because as much as I love Ahsoka, I am glad the Rebels got to resolve their own series.
Yes, me too. I am so happy that they avoided that. And so when I saw her waiting for Sabine, it was like, oh, well played.
Yeah.
Well played,
Absolutely.
And it's... yeah. I mean, just seeing the shot of Sabine staring out at New Lothal, what we call it. That was reminiscent of Ezra from the first season, right? In that same spot, she was in that same spot. That I don't know. It just brought it all home. I mean, it made me super emotional. I'm just saying. I know it's stupid. I guess you might say.
No, it's not.
Because it's like...
look who you're talking to.
I know, but I'm just saying that...
You're in good company.
This was supposed to be... it still amazes me that they ran this on XD. you know what I mean? And not ABC proper. Because I know so many people who are not necessarily in that XD niche that download that app, that made sure that they had that station on their packages for their TV, setup, just so they could watch this show, And so, yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. It just really touched emotional nerves to a lot of people. And that's the reason why at the ending, it was so well done. I mean, I don't know. I'm still trying to process, Sabine being the one who is giving the whole, at the end of the Breakfast Club, you know what I mean? Kind of thing, you know what I mean? And
that's a great analogy.
I'm just trying to really process that and think, why is she the one that's giving this soliloquy? You know what I mean? And like I said, I still haven't really thought it all through. I'm just got to go back and rethink her role for the entire series.
Yeah, here's my gut reaction to that. She's the artist amongst the group. She's the storyteller. She left that huge portrait of them behind. She created that giant portrait of the crew of the Ghost, and it had Kanan, and his eyes were still white. I don't know if anyone noticed that, but it had Ezra in the center of it, and then they're all holding their helmets, and I think Kanan had his hand on Hera's shoulder, and Zeb was resting a hand on Sabine's shoulder. She made them very much a family, but she left that giant portrait behind her. Reminded me very much of the portrait of the ones from Mortis that we saw in last week's episodes. And so she's an artist, she's a storyteller, and I thought that it was very fitting that she was the one that was telling that. I mean, it seemed like she was the natural choice. I mean, it wasn't going to be Zeb. And Chopper is indecipherable. Kanan's gone. Ezra's elsewhere. We don't know his fate yet. So it really came down to Sabine and Hera, and Hera's not really the storyteller.
Yeah.
So,
and she left it behind too. That's wow. She left that mural there. That's where the story ends, here, for these people together. Man,
Okay. Well, real quick, we had a friend and listener of the show reach out to us on Twitter with his thoughts, unsolicited, so this was great. But he says, this was Darth Drago, who's at Darth Drago76 on Twitter, and he said, Hashtag Star Wars Rebels Season 4, at Dave Filoni, at Real FP Jr., at Sweet Ashes for You, at Darth Taxus, at DJKVR2, at SQ Pod. Just got done rewatching Season 4, and all I can say is, OMG, the smiles and the heartbreak are very overwhelming. Thank you for an incredible journey that you have taken us on. So, yeah, I mean, I think that sums it up nicely. And it was an incredible journey. I think, Jay, I don't know. Did you went to Celebration Anaheim, if my memory serves? Did you get to see the Rebels panel then?
I did.
Yeah, and I know Taxus did, and then I got to see them this past Celebration Orlando, and just the sense of family that cast had, how appreciative of their work. I got to meet all of them at some point. Met Steve Bloom at Dallas Comic Con, or Fan Expo, as I like to call it. And then I got to meet the other four at Celebration, and they were very appreciative of their fans. They were really eager to talk about the show when given the opportunity, and it's tough to see this go. I hope all of them get to be involved in Star Wars in some shape or fashion in the future. Again, I hate to see this is the last that we're gonna get of that cast. It looks like Sabine's the most likely character to return given the stories we've had. But just thinking of other media, I'd love to see a Hera comic the way similar to the one that we had for Kanan. I think that'd be fantastic. Now we get to see Hera right now in Dr. Aphra, and so far I'm not entirely pleased with that. But that's a subject for another show. But anyway, so let's go back around the table and give our final thoughts on this one and our grades. Jay?
Final thoughts. That carries so much weight, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But you mentioned at Celebration, and the feeling in the room, and I'm sure that some of our listeners can agree with this if they were there, is unlike anything else. Just being in the same room with all of these people who absolutely love this series and love everything that it stands for and love everything that it's about, and have really over the years gone forward with their fandom and really solidified their fandom through Rebels. And it's such a special entity. And even though, as much as I loved the Clone Wars, and, you know, I say over and over again that I wept when it ended and I went through the grief process, you know, and everything like that. And obviously everything comes to an end at some point, and you have to accept that. And this ending for Rebels was something that I never anticipated, but I'm so glad that it was done the way that it was. And, you know, Taxus, you brought up some things about the first shot mirroring the exact same idea as the last shot, with Ezra looking out over Lothal, and it was all desolate. And then you see Sabine in the exact same situation looking out over the capital city, and it was thriving. Yes. And it's just, and again, it's all about the whole idea of redemption, and the whole idea of, you know, everyone's always said Star Wars is family, and Star Wars is family. Star Wars is about love. It's about the connections that we make. It's about being loyal to each other. It's about getting over something that is oppressive to you and learning from it. And this series was definitely all of that and more. And I just feel like it gives us so much to look forward to, even in the future. And I'm going to say it right now. I mean, thinking about the voice actors of these characters, every single one of them could totally play a live action version of that character. Crazy, I truly believe that.
Yeah.
But, you know, of course, there's so many things that I wonder what's going to happen to Ezra's lightsaber, and I wonder what Sabine's going to do from here. And of course, you know, the interactions between Ahsoka and Sabine, because, you know, Ahsoka's become the sage in this whole thing. She's kind of become the Yoda of that group in a way.
Yeah.
But I'm so happy. Ahsoka. Or Yasoka.
Yasoka.
But yeah, I'm so happy, and I'm so thankful for Dave Filoni and the whole story group, and just the love and the passion that they've put into it these years as well. So yeah, I could keep going, but I've said enough. So thank you, Rebels, for everything. And gosh, may the Force be with everyone that was involved.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. I'm going to tear up. I'm going to say, okay, I'm not saying anymore.
Well, how about your final grade, as if I couldn't guess?
Oh, gosh. Well, 100, of course. It's 100.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
So,
Taxus?
yeah, you
need to follow that up.
Let's see. So, a long time ago, in a Metroplex far, far away, not really too far, I had a quick message from a friend I had made through meeting, you know, Peter Mayhew, you know, at an event. And all he said was, quick, go here and sign up for this. And that friend was Texas Dude on Twitter. You've heard me reference him before. And I was like, oh, okay, what is it? And I clicked on it. It was like pre-screening for Star Wars Rebels. You know, sign up so you can get in. So I did. And I took my two girls down there, and I met some friends who actually I'd heard on Coffee with Kenobi and never met in person before. You know, standing in line as well. And we sat there in that theater and watched what was beautiful. You know, it was so simple, it was so basic, but it captured all those elements. And you know, it's kind of, it's like my oldest daughter was a freshman in high school when we went and did that, and now she's a senior on the final season. And I tweeted out a picture that she had made that we took for this year, because all the seniors, you know, you get to purchase a spot to park in, and you can paint whatever it is you want to paint as a logo on that spot. And so in her school colors, she decided she wanted to do the you know, the Rebels Phoenix and logo. And you know, so on a really super hot August day, that she completed it, and that was the kind of mark that it left on her, that she felt kind of symbolized, I guess, her time, you know, through high school, through what she's looking forward to do next. And so, you know, I don't know. I guess that's why I was kind of emotional about it too. And so I made sure to tweet that out to the crew and just tell them how thankful I was for the fun we've had with it. And, you know, I just have to say thank you, Rebels, for everything you've done to your voices and bodies.
So what was your final thought on this episode?
Well, this is a clear 100, obviously. And not only that, it was so well done that I was willing to award it extra credit, which was carried back retroactively to the previous episode where I scored it a 95. I gave it 5 points, so that previous episode is now 100 again. Congratulations, you win.
All right. Well,
I told you it'd be a surprise.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I don't have, you know, you all said it very eloquently. There's a lot of great experiences, and I touched on mine with Celebration Orlando and having got to meet these actors before, and I got to meet Dave Filoni out at Rancho Obi-Wan, and I had the opportunity then to thank him for both Clone Wars and Rebels, and that, you know, that's what brought my kids into Star Wars, and so that was really cool. As for this episode, I can sum it up in one word, which is satisfied. You know, there's, like I said earlier in the episode, there's always some apprehension that comes with a finale to a series. There's a lot of shows that got it wrong. There's plenty of shows that got it right. But I think, you know, not only did they bring the story arc for the season to a successful closure, they brought the story arc from the entire series to a successful closure, and then they gave us an idea of the future of these characters without, I don't know, it was very fitting what they came up with for all these characters. And there's still left room to tell stories for all of them. We already know some of the stuff that happened. So, you know, the Ghost and Chopper and Hera are involved and around at the time of Rogue One. We know Hera's around doing stuff for the Rebels after the Battle of Yavin based on the Afra comic. We've seen Hera in the aftermath of the Battle of Endor in Forces of Destiny. And, you know, and then this, you know, just pointed out that, you know, the rest of them had a future as well, and that they got to go on and do some things. And so, you know, it wasn't just the big, you know, the big six, you know, Spectres 1 through 6, you know, it involved Callus, and, you know, we heard about Rex again, and we got to see a little bit of Ahsoka's fate. So, you know, there was an opportunity to leave so many things dangling out there that, you know, just would have, I think, frustrated fans. But the one mystery that they left, which is, you know, what happened to Ezra and Thrawn, they let us know that there's something that's going to be done about that.
Yes.
And I think that was a huge step to take, and it was absolutely the right thing to do. So I was extremely pleased by that. I think this was, like I said, a very satisfying conclusion to the season, to this story arc, to the show. So well done, Dave Filoni and the crew. And this one gets 100. That's as simple, you know, despite my criticism about, you know, Thrawn's characterization, you know, maybe something I would like to have seen differently, but I can't criticize the choices they made. So anyways, that's 100.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we've thoroughly discussed this one, and this won't be the last time we bring up Rebels. You know, there will be other things to talk about going forward in the future. But
I think we're going to have a big, like, overall discussion with some guests at some point, you know, about the entire series.
Well, let's not promise anything just yet. But
I'm promising it just yet.
That's going to do it for our look back at the Rebels finale. Before we go, what other content do either of you have for their Scoundrels to look forward to?
Well, for me, as always, you can find me on Coffee with Kenobi, and my Core Worlds Couture fashion review blogs are always there. And I am going to be on an episode of Legends Library here in probably the end of March. On Coffee with Kenobi as well with Randy Therio. We're going to be talking about Carrie Fisher's wishful drinking. So I'm really looking forward to that as well. And of course, you can always find me right here.
All right.
So there you go.
Taxus?
Well, tomorrow is Chicken Fried Steak Day at the cafeteria. I'm looking forward to that. Other than that, you can find me over on the Assembly of Geeks Network with the Geek Supreme and Scott Murray, Jeff McGee, and Regina Davis. And I guess I lay upon them some current geek topics, and they compete against each other to win my favor so that one of them could be crowned the Geek Supreme. And after that, I'm working on our penultimate Rebels discussion segment where we're going to have guests. Just saying.
Seriously? Okay. Well, as usual, you can find my comic reviews under the comics commentary section on RetroZap. A couple that I was really excited about recently include Darth Vader number 12 and Star Wars number 44.
Yes.
If you want to see what I'm talking about with Hera appearing in Afra, check out my latest review for the last issue of Afra. In addition to that, I am doing a series on the Infinity Gauntlet, which is in the lead up to Avengers Infinity War. And I've also recently made my first appearance on Jedi Journals, breaking down the Enormous Prophet story arc from the Afra comic.
Nice.
And yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Had a good time talking to Jay. Thanks so much. If you want to find us on social media, Scoundrels, we are at SQ Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Jay does a great job keeping things updated for us over there. We can also be found on Facebook at facebook.com/SQ Pod. You can email the show at sqpod@retrozap.com. If you want to follow us individually, Darth Vader is on Twitter at Darth Taxus. Did I say Darth Vader? Darth Taxus is on Twitter at Darth Taxus. Jay is at Joyce Krebs, and I am at DJKVER2. Speaking of RetroZap, we are a proud part of the retrozap.com podcast network. The network currently features 21 shows. And so subscribe to the network feed and you can get them all. And they all have something to offer, so I highly recommend that.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for this Scoundrel Special Edition. We'll talk to you next time, which will be very soon. In the next few days, we'll have episode 50 out. And until then, may the Force be with you.
Ezra's out there somewhere, and it's time to bring him home.
The Force will be with you. Always.